Hello and welcome to my Skyrim Alteration Guide. So Alteration is a very weird form of magic because it doesn't necessarily kill things or deal damage, but it changes things and it can change the state of things. So I would say Alteration is kind of like chemistry, where it just kind of like changes the properties of something. And there actually are spells that can literally change one item into another. So if we look at some spells in Alteration, for example, water breathing. This will make it so you can breathe underwater so you'll not drown. This is a perfect example of an alteration spell. It changes you, the player, so that you can now breathe underwater. Another example is transmute. So let's say we cast transmute. In this case, I have no ore that can be transmuted, but what transmute does is it turns iron ore into silver and silver ore into gold. So it's a very useful spell that can just take like low value ore and just literally make you money. So that's one of the more interesting ones. Another one is Telekinesis. So Telekinesis lets you grab objects, which also allows you to steal objects. So in the case of being a thief or a pickpocket, you can actually levitate objects from a very far distance and then steal them. So this is one of the uses of Telekinesis. So let me just run into town here really quick and show you that. The other thing to note about telekinesis is it's not considered a crime to levitate objects, even though you can steal them afterwards, and you can also sneak while doing it. So for example, you can see I'm going to levitate this iron mace to me, and you can pull it as far away as you need to be no longer seen. And as you're doing this, it also will raise your alteration, and then you can shoot the object, and if you hit an enemy, it'll do like 4 damage or something kind of funny, but that's a way to steal things, is with alteration. Another use case, the Paralyze spell. This is one of the more like combat-oriented spells. It paralyzes foes that fail to resist for 10 seconds, allowing you just to wail on them with like any physical weapons or magic, or like a bow or something. If you want to like get a bunch of melee hits in, like Paralyze is good for that. There's also another spell, Mass Paralyze, which will just AoE paralyze multiple foes within the radius. So that's also very good. Let's go back to the list. There's also Mage Light and the other spell that I can't think of the name, but it's something to do with mage. Something like it's a spell. I think Candlelight. It's like a ball like this that follows you, so you kind of have like a torch. So keeping in theme with like changing things, like adding light, levitating an object, paralyzing a foe. There's also the flesh spells like Ebony Flesh, Oak Flesh, and so on. They increase your armor, which can, once again, it alters you. Let's go to Detect Life. There's Detect the Dead and Detect Life. These will allow you to see things through walls. So if you're sneaking, if you're trying not to get caught, this is pretty useful. So let me just run over here so I can just show you that. So I'm detecting life. So you can see them through the wall like this. So that's pretty useful. It's especially useful on Thief. Then you have Equilibrium, which is a pretty good spell. This sucks away your health and gives you magicka. So let me like burn through my magicka really quick. Okay, let's cast Equilibrium. So I actually am regenerating faster than that because I'm out of combat. But in combat, Equilibrium is quite good because you regenerate much slower. Like your magicka and stamina regenerate much slower in combat. So Equilibrium converts your health into magicka, which can be useful. And you can also heal yourself and use Restoration and Equilibrium out of combat. So you can heal yourself while you're using Equilibrium to level both Restoration and Alteration out of combat. So that's a pretty useful thing you can do with it. So let's actually look at the perks. So Alteration is mostly good for like mage armor and also increasing your survivability. You have to get novice and apprentice alteration before you can start getting useful perks. One thing to note about dual casting, the effect will not become stronger. It'll just make it last longer. So it's not as good as it seems. So some of the more useful perks, mage armor, protection spells are up to 2 and then 2.5 and then 3 times stronger. So This is debatable because the master level spell just gives you a straight up 80% damage reduction against physical, which is virtually max armor. So if you don't plan on getting that, or it's taking forever to level, you might consider running mage armor. You don't need it, but it isn't bad. Then you have magic resistance. This is definitely one of the better skills, or one of the better perks in this skill tree. It just increases your magic resistance by 10% per level, so it just makes you tankier against magic. So what magic resistance does is if you were to take 100 magic damage and you have 30% resistance, you now take 70 damage. So it's like a percentage off of the damage. So after you get Adept Alteration, you can get Stability, which just increases the duration of spells. So once again, not sure how useful this is. In most cases, when you're fighting things, combat doesn't last long enough to justify this, but you might still want it if you're running a lot of mods. So after you get Expert Alteration, it forks into Master Alteration, just having the casting cost for master spells. And then, of course, you have Atronach, which is also one of the better perks. Absorb 30% of the spells that hit you. So what this does is you get the base cost as Magicka back, and it happens based on the percentage. So if you get hit every, I guess, like 3 out of 10 times, you will take no damage. It'll nullify the damage or the effect of the magic, and you will just get Magicka back. So Alteration has some really useful defensive things for mages, specifically Mage Armor, which just lets you tank physical, Magic Resistance, which lets you tank magic, and then of course Atronach, which lets you tank magic even more, and also refill your Magicka. So it's a bit of a maintenance utility skill that doesn't have damage. It also has these utility spells, Telekinesis for stealing things, Transmute for making money off of iron ore, Water Breathing for just swimming, Paralyze for crowd control, Mass Paralyze for crowd control, the Flesh spells, which increase your armor, Detect Life and Detect Dead, which are like utility skills that let you see through the wall and detect enemies, see where they're at, where they're positioned, so you can plan like assassinations or like steal things and avoid being detected. You have Equilibrium, which can convert your health into Magicka, which can be useful. So and then of course like Mage Light and Candle Light for just like making light. So it has a lot of utility. I always run it with Destruction for Mage Armor, just so I have some kind of damage reduction while I'm running robes. And then of course once you get Dragon Skin, you can just tank as if you're wearing like full armor. So it's not bad. You can just like focus on just like Schools of Magic with a setup like this. So yeah, that's Alteration. It's definitely useful. I would say Alteration and Illusion are the stranger forms of magic, because while they aren't like directly useful in combat, they can be indirectly useful. Like for example, frenzying an enemy won't necessarily damage him per se, but he'll take damage from fighting his allies and possibly even kill the allies. So there's some unique benefits to these spells. But so yeah, that's the end of this Alteration video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.